we're taking every word, every verse of this 3-chapter sermon, if you like, of Jesus. It was Jesus's first sermon. So we saw that the last word in the Old Testament was the word curse. And the first word that Jesus speaks in his first sermon was the word blessed. Blessed are the poor in spirit. So that's the week where we started. And we've slowly been working our way through to where we are today, which is Matthew chapter 5. Still in the first chapter, verse 33. We'll be coming close to the end of this chapter today. And it says, again, you have heard that it was said to those of old. This word, again, Jesus is saying, you've heard someone teaching on it. He's not saying it is written. He's saying you've heard the teaching. He's not contradicting what is written. What is contradicting, if you like, is the interpretation of the scribes, the people that have been teaching it. So he says, again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord. They were twisting scriptures. You know, Exodus 20, where it speaks about don't take the Lord's name in vain. They were taking scriptures such as that, very similar scriptures, and saying, look, you can swear on anything, just basically don't swear on God's name. If you swear on God's name, if you don't do it, it's a curse, you're in trouble. But if you swear on anybody else's name, it's okay, it's a false oath. You'll get away with it. And so they were twisting scriptures, and Jesus is coming here. In verse 34, I'll just read this section. But I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black, but let your yes be yes and your no, no, for whatever is more than these is from the evil one. Jesus jumps straight into this. I'll come to that bit in a moment. Jesus comes straight into this and he says, look, it's not about swearing an oath. It's not about if I swear by God's name, then I've got to do it. And if I swear by something else, I can break the oath. You know, when you were younger and you say, like, I swear my mum's life, and you got your fingers crossed behind your back. It's one of those. That's basically what the Pharisees were doing. I swear on heaven, or I swear on the earth. Fingers are crossed. It don't mean nothing. I don't have to stick to this oath. That's what they were doing. And Jesus comes in and says, look, whatever comes out of your mouth, let it be truth. So when we see in the Bible, we see that the devil is the father of lies. When he speaks his native language. His native language is just that of lies. He is what he is right from the beginning. From the beginning of time, he's a murderer and a liar, the Bible says. And so Jesus is saying here, look, when you say, I'm going to do something, then do it. Now, let your yes be yes and your no, no. This just slaps me in the face with the word integrity. The first thing I look at for in leaders is integrity. It's not about their giftings, it's about their integrity. If a leader was to say to me, Aaron, I'll be there, but they don't turn up, but they've said they're going to be there, what kind of integrity is that? Like, I can't even take the man or the woman for their word. So it doesn't matter what giftings they got if they can't even be honorable to their word. And so when Jesus says, let your yes be yes and your no, no, let me give you an example of modern day times and something that you can connect with in, say, LBC. We have sign-up sheets all the time, don't we? So if we're going to do men's breakfast or women's ministry or this or that, we have sign-up sheets. People will go up to the sign-up sheet, put their name down, but over the years, I've learned that certain names on that sheet of paper don't really mean they're coming. They say, I'm doing this, but they don't do it. So I've already made my mind, I'm probably not going to turn up. There's already this expectation, probably not going to come. Their word means nothing. And Jesus is trying to pull you away from that. And he's saying, let your yes be yes and your no, no. Otherwise, how can a man believe the word that comes out of your mouth? If I say to Luke, Luke, can you preach next week? And Luke says, I got it, Aaron. I'll preach next week. I'll preach. No problem. And then next week he turns up and he hasn't preached. If he's that kind of person, I can't really trust him. I can't really say to Luke the week before, Luke, can you preach next week? If he always lets me down, if he always says, I'll do it, but he always doesn't do it, his integrity is shot. It's non-existent. So then I'm not going to use Luke as the person. But because I know when Luke says, yes, I'll do it, he'll do it, unless he has one of those memory lapses, what also happens quite regularly with him. But that's not his integrity. That's just Luke. That's his character. But yeah. But you get what I'm saying with the word, let your yes be yes and your no, no. Jesus is just hammering down on something and he's saying, look, all these oaths that they make all these oaths, they say all these things. Don't worry about that. It's not, if I swear by God, then I'll do it. It's saying, let truth come out of your mouth. If you're going to say you're going to do something, do it. Old school people in the room, you'll be like, yeah, your word. Your word. You know, when you see those crime films, and it's like, they're the most corrupt crime families going and they're doing all these things. They're killing people, they're kidnapping, murdering. It doesn't matter. They've done a whole lot. But then there'll be some stage in the film where they say, by my word, I won't touch that person. I'll give you my word, I won't touch that person. And they don't. But they've been sly, deceitful, everything, all the way through the film. But I give you my word, I won't touch that person. This is what Jesus is saying. Look, when you give your word, let it be. Let it be. Now, obviously, by the way, I used the sign-up sheets as an example. People will drop out of things. It happens. Go back to before you was a Christian and stag do's. 30, 40 people signed up for the stag do. Then you turn up to the stag do and there's 17 of you. You always had that one mate that you like. He says he's coming, but there's no way he's coming. Mrs. won't let him, or this won't happen, or he won't come. He just says it. Don't be known as that person. Don't be known as that person that, they always say. You know the story about the boy that cried wolf? Like, phones up, my house is on fire. Fire brigade turn up, house isn't on fire. Phones up the next day, my house is on fire. Turn up, house isn't on fire. Third day does it, and so on and so on. And then one day he does it, and his house is on fire, but the fire brigade says, he always says this, I'm not going. And he burns down. Don't be the one that cried wolf. Let your yes be yes and your no, no. Integrity is key. Integrity. And the reason why I'm touching on it, one, because Jesus spoke it, and we're going through verse by verse of what Jesus said, but it's a place of maturity for the church. That's one of the things that we're asking God for this year. One of the three things that we're asking. And the first thing, that firm foundation, that God, would you grow us in spirituality? Would you grow us in maturity across the board, but specifically right here in Birmingham? You see, Birmingham is like the hub. It's a centre. If you look at us geographically, we're the centre of the UK. And as we plant, we've got the biggest building, the biggest facilities, everything. I think that God gave us this place to be the hub. And so out of the hub must come a strong remnant, must come a strong people, must come a strong church. We must lead the way. That's kind of my mentality, my thinking. I want us to lead the way, but we must be strong. We must be grounded. And the reason why, if we are the hub and we're the place that out of this place, the greatest amount of finance will be pushed out to serve other churches and help other plants. And maybe our pastors and our teachers, our evangelists, they will rise up from this place and be sent out. I have a Bible study group, and the reason I've got a Bible study group of guys, is that I want to see them trained up to be everything that God has called them to be. And who knows, that group could be the next lot of pastors, the next lot of evangelists, teachers. And so out of this place, I think it's so important that our maturity levels start to move higher and higher, deeper and deeper. Our roots go deeper. One of the big reasons for that is if we are the hub and we are the center and we are the place that God is going to bring out of this whole vision from here to the coast, into Europe and into the world. Birmingham supports so much of that. Like if you understood, if any of you, if you actually would have come to the AGM, you'd be able to see, and you'd see on the finances that Birmingham supports so much. Like our finance, God uses to spread. And it's not that we're a really rich congregation, but out of this building, out of the Brazilian church, out of the Iranian church, out of the, I say English church, we're not English church, we're different nations in here, but the English-speaking church, out of the English-speaking church, the greatest amount of finance comes in to LBC from this building. Plus there's other things where we rent the building out on one side in certain days of the week to a Christian charity. And so the finance coming into the church, it already looks like the hub in a business sense. The enemy's going to want to attack the heartbeat of that. The enemy's going to want to attack this church. The enemy's going to want to attack what comes out of this place. And that's why I'm going about maturity constantly. That's why I'm constantly beating the same drum. It's not that I've got a what do they say, a bone in? An axe to grind. We'll use that one. Thank you, but please don't join in the service anymore. You've got an axe to grind. No, thank you, Rach. It's not that. It's not that. It's I know what God has spoken about this place, and you know, I focus so much on the people that don't come at times. And I think God just kind of twisted something in my head and just changed something and said, Aaron, maturity, and you remember Oldbury. And I remember a time in Oldbury when I used to focus on the ones that didn't come. And by looking and trying to run after the ones that don't come, you forget about the ones that have come. And a place of maturity in my own thing is, don't look. You can't keep running after people that are so sporadic. You can't keep running after people that 1 week they're in, then 3 weeks they're out. Go for the ones that are with you. Go for them. God will send other people. And so there was a change, if you like, in my direction. So when I'm saying about maturity for the church, God is working on me as well. He's working on the leaders. He's working on everybody in this room. And it's kind of remembering what a man called John Bedford once said to me. He said, Aaron, respond to responders. Because if you go running after the people that, you know, they're not in, they will drain your time so much. And that's why I'm trying to get the church to a place of standing up and like, we're going for it. Because I honestly believe that the enemy, if he wanted to attack any congregation in the church of LBC, this would be his main attack. If I was the enemy, I'd attack the heart. I'd attack the heartbeat of the organization, the heartbeat of the movement, the heartbeat of the ministry, whatever wording you want to pull alongside it. That's where I believe the enemy will attack. And that's why we need to stand strong. That's why I'm banging the drum about maturity. Not because I think we're an immature church. I don't. I just think there's a great mission and a great assignment for this place. And because of that comes greater responsibility. And going straight to the foundations of it, one of the key things is integrity. Let your yes be yes and your no, no. We were speaking just the other day in our Bible study group, and we were saying, look, I want to look along the trench and know the person next to me, he's got my back. Like, I can trust that man. I can trust that man. We want that. Well, that only comes from a place of integrity. That only comes from that place. If those people that, when I say you're worldly people, I don't mean worldly now, but, you know, you've come from the world, a little bit like my background, my testimony before I came to faith. Like when you was in the pub, you had a group of guys, you knew. Like, they got my back. Have you got that when you've come into the church? And a lot of us haven't got that. A lot of us haven't got that hashtag gang mentality that we had in our former life, where you had mates and you had people that you could rely on, and at any moment, you know, they were going to turn up. If somebody's even looked at you in the wrong way, they'd be there on your doorstep, like, everything all right? You need any help? And yet the church should be a greater family, and yet we continue to let each other down on a regular basis. We continue to be flippant with our, yeah, I'll be there. And then we don't, it's all right, it's just a church. We got to change our mentality. We've got to change up here. And integrity is key for this. Integrity is key. So when Jesus says, let your yes be yes and your no, no, he's not just saying it because he's got nothing else to say. This is his first sermon. This is his first preach to these people. It's his first one. He wants the world to know. He wants the readers of the Bible to know that integrity is key. Let your yes be yes and your no, no. It seems like it's nothing major. It obviously was something big to Jesus for him to say, I want that written down in the scriptures. Let your yes be yes and your no, no. Let me go on to verse 38, otherwise I'll never get off it. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. By the way, sometimes people look at this and they think there must have been a whole lot of revenge going on in Old Testament times. This was actually written down in the law to try and stop the constant revenge. This was kind of a guideline for the courts. Many a time they would go to the courts and they would have a lesser punishment dished out than this eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Because we read that and we think, someone hits you, hit them back. If somebody steals from you, steal back. You know that word karma, by the way, just so everybody knows that karma's from the pit of hell. It's not a Christian word. It's not, you know, I hear people say sometimes Christians, and unless you're ever told, you'll never know. But when you say, oh, I hope karma gets them, like, look, if karma was real, it comes from a completely different origin, okay? Just so you know, it's not Christian at all. It's satanic. But if karma was real and we got what we deserved, we'd all have what we deserve. What is what we deserve? The wages of sin is death. That's what we all deserve because we've all fallen short of the glory of God. So karma isn't real. People don't always get what they deserve. The Bible says that the rain and the sun, it shines and it falls on the righteous and the unrighteous. We don't always get what we deserve in this life. And yet, to be honest, none of us get what we deserve. Because if we got what we deserved, we'd be bound to hell. We'd be dashed on the wrong path. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you not to resist an evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn to him also, basically, your other cheek. You heard that one? If someone slaps you on your right side, turn the other. Everybody always says to me, Aaron, does that mean like I can't fight back? We go straight away into a physical thinking. And you know, this whole scripture isn't actually about a physical. In ancient times, if somebody gave you a backhand, it was considered a severe insult, and they would be taken to court and they'd have to pay a severe fine. Like that was a backhanded slap. If someone backhanded you, it was a severe insult in ancient biblical times. And so you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, but I tell you not to resist an evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. This was really about don't trade insult for insult. If somebody insults you, don't turn around. If they say, your mama, it's Mother's Day, isn't it? So they do a mama joke. Yeah? If they do a mama joke, you don't turn around, well, I got a better mama joke, and you do one back. If somebody insults you, whatever it might be, you don't turn around and go, I got something better for you. You don't trade insult for insult. You turn the other cheek. The best verse, and it came to me yesterday, it was in 1 Peter 3. This passage best explains it for me. So this is Peter speaking, and he says, finally, all of you be of one mind, having compassion for one another, love as brothers, be tender-hearted, be courteous, not returning evil for evil. Turn the other cheek. Or reviling for reviling, turn the other cheek. But on that contrary blessing, knowing that you were called to this, that you may inherit a blessing. For he who would love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayers, but the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. Peter simply says, don't repay evil for evil. This is turn the other cheek. If somebody slaps you on one side, it's not about turn the other cheek and let them punch you on the other side. Look, I've been asked the question many times. If someone attacked me, I'm right to defend myself. Okay, as Christians, we're not doormats that are meant to be trampled over. If someone attacked you, you're in your right to protect yourself. If someone attacked your family, you're in your right to protect yourself. There's a difference. You know, when you see in court, sometimes when someone says, oh, it was self-defense. It was self-defense until you started stamping on their head. That's gone past self-defense to now I'm taking the law into my own hands and I'm angry and I'm this and I'm that. Turn the other cheek. Don't repay insult for insult. Don't repay insult for insult. Somebody says something bad at you, don't respond with something bad to them. In the Proverbs, it talks about not adding wood to a fire, and then an argument will go out. If you imagine an argument's like a fire, every time you add fuel to it, you add wood to it, the fire gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And what he was saying is, look, don't continue to give words to the argument. Like, stop it. Stop it. Don't repay evil with evil. Turn the other cheek. This section that we're looking at right now is all about how we respond to others. This section is all about how we respond to others. Turn the other cheek. If we continue, I think it's verse 40, just so I can get just a little bit more in of it. If anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also. So your tunic, that was your first garment, so it's the undergarment. If someone asks for your tunic, he then says, give him your cloak as well. That was an outer garment. In the Old Testament, there was laws that you couldn't take someone's outer garment. If you took it as a pledge, you had to return it by sundown. You couldn't hold it overnight. So what's Jesus saying? If someone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also. Like, this is what you call a hyperbolic statement. You impressed? Hyperbolic. Don't ask stupid questions. Well, what it means is basically is exaggerating a point. He's not trying to convey facts. He's exaggerating a point. Is going a bit over the top to make a point. It's a hyperbolic statement. Learned from a man called Dr. Bob Utley. There you go, Bernie. Bernie's first woo of the day, Dr. Bob Utley, a very deep theologian. But anyway, I've always wanted to get something in that he said. Hyperbolic statement. It's done. Ticks it off the list now. He's making a point. He's exaggerating a situation, but he's making a point. He's not trying to convey facts, okay? And he's saying, look, if someone wants to take your tunic, let him have your cloak also. He's saying, you know, go above and beyond. Do more than that person expected. It then says, and whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Again, hyperbolic statement is making it like, go further, do more. Now there's always context to what Jesus says. So you know here where it says, whoever compels you to go 1 mile, you might say to yourself, who would make me go 1 mile? Well, in these times, they were under military rule, weren't they, by the Romans? And so there was a military law at the time that if a soldier was walking down the road and he saw a Jew, he saw anyone, he'd say, come here, carry my backpack for 1 mile. They were only allowed to do it for 1 mile. Now, Jesus would know that, and this is why Jesus uses this as an example, because he knows that the soldiers of that time were able to say to a Jew, look, here's my backpack, carry it for 1 mile, I'm going this way. And then when the end of the mile comes, he had to take it back and maybe give it to somebody else. He couldn't give it to the same person. And Jesus is saying, repay evil with good. Like, they've come to try and manipulate you and do this in an evil way, but this is an opportunity to show a free act of love. Like, I'll take what you tried to do for evil by forcing me to walk 1 mile, and I'll say, no, I'll go 2 instead. I'll take it 2 miles. I'll go above and beyond. In the Bible, Jesus talks about love your enemies. Like, it goes against our thinking. He turns it upside down. A lot of the Old Testament would respond with the eye for the eye, tooth for a tooth moment. But Jesus comes in and he's saying, look, you've heard that they've said these kind of things, but I'm telling you, go the extra mile. I'm telling you, if someone wants to take your cloak or someone wants to take your tunic from you, your inner garment, give them your outer garment as well. If someone compels you to go 1 mile, no, go with them 2 miles. Like, defeat them with love. Like, go above, give more than what they expected. It's maturity. Because the way we would react, we wouldn't. And, different context right now, but imagine someone told you to walk a mile with them and you don't know them. I wouldn't expect you to say, actually, I'll walk 2 miles with you. Like, it's pretty dangerous to get in the car with someone for a mile. Different context. But you can still take that principle into your everyday life. And when you're compelled to do something, when someone tries to manipulate a situation to do you harm, when I say harm, not physical harm, but you know what I mean. Someone tries to manipulate a situation, what would the Bible respond with? Talks about doing acts of love that would pour burning coals on the devil's head. That's what it would be like. Like, the enemy comes to try and you just go, I'm going to flip that. I'm going to love my enemy. That's crazy in our worldly thinking. But it's not crazy to a radical Jesus that came to turn the world upside down. At the same time, always have in the back of your mind, you're not doormats, okay? So you're not there to be trampled over. You're not there just to bow down and accept what people throw at you just because you're a Christian. Like, there's a balance. You have to keep these things in balance. So just always remember that. And whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Have I got a couple more verses? It's only 25 past. I can finish the last couple. Give to him who asks you, and from him who wants to borrow from you. Do not turn away. Oh, is that the final verse? If there's anything else. Let your light so shine before men. Okay, technically, this just goes right back to our first talk. I wondered if there's any more of the continuing in the Sermon on the Mount, but this verse that is just jumped up, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. This is exactly what it is when you go the extra mile. People see your good works. This is what Jesus is talking about. He's already spoken about it early on in his sermon. Right at the beginning, he's saying, let the world see your good works. Let them see what you do. And then they glorify your Father in heaven. 1 Peter 2:12 as well then. Having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by your good works which they observe, glorify God in the day of visitation. The world's looking at you. The world's looking at the way you do life. The world's looking at the Christian. It's usually looking to try and say, I thought you called yourself a Christian. But when they look at us, let them no longer see us, but let them see Christ that lives through us. Amen. And so that they would, by your good works, observe and glorify God in the day of visitation. Chapter 5. We are nearly finished with the whole of chapter 5. I'll leave the next section and we'll get the worship team up a lot earlier than normal. See what happens. Don't worry if you finish just as normal. Don't matter. 1, 2. I thought that was going. We got to mature as a church, not because we're immature. Okay? Hear that. We're not an immature church. It's not a case of, oh, we're really immature. No, I believe this is the heartbeat of the ministry. I believe that this place, this building that God gave it us, to the testimony to get this place, is far greater than any other story amongst LBC, believe it or not. Like, you hear some of the stories, and in Kenya, I just saw one of the churches that we planted over in Kenya. I just witnessed like over 500, 600 university students in their service. Like, when we planted that, it was like 30 people. Like, you could look at that and go, that's incredible. That's the most amazing testimony. But the way we got this building, that it was offered to 10 people before us, 10 other churches, and all 10 churches says, nah. Like, why? Like, why? They didn't even have to use it as a church. They could have just continued to run all the things at the time that were running on the other side and just use the finance that was coming in through them. They didn't even have to open it up. It could have just been a money-making machine for them, if you like. Obviously, when we came in, we removed certain things from the church, because if it doesn't align with the gospel, if it doesn't align with the things of God, we didn't want it in the house of God, because the house of God is for prayer and worship. And so we couldn't allow things from within to corrupt. That doesn't mean people with baggage coming in. No. For the church is a hospital. It's meant for people that are poorly. It's meant for people that are, if you like, have so much sin and baggage going on in their life. It's meant for them because it transforms them and changes them. But in regards to organizations, we wouldn't put on activities that don't align with the things of God. And so we did remove quite a few things out of the other side, and we kept one thing, which was a Christian organization that helps with homelessness and stuff. And that has paid for the majority of our bills moving forward. That has covered the majority of our bills as a church. And that's why this place has been a great influence around the world, because the majority of our bills have been covered by them, which has enabled us to spread finance to help other places. You know, one thing that we are in this church is we're not trying to store up in a bank balance. When it comes in, it goes out. We're not your typical, I say typical church, I can't speak for other churches. I don't know what other churches do. We're the church, it comes in one hand, we give it out with the other. I've always known that you can never outgive God. And in the same way with your lives, church, you cannot outgive him. Like, if you would give to God, I promise he'll give to you. And I'm not talking finance. I'm talking about give your life, get serious. Like, God, I'm coming into your house and I'm worshiping your name. Amen. And it's not about how worship makes you feel. Do we ever ask the question, God, how did that make you feel today? Usually we come out and we're like, how did worship make me feel today? Yeah, no, it was good. Worship was fire. I've done it myself. I do it myself. I come out of church on a Sunday and I say, worship was fire today. I was so fired up. Like, it was really good, really good. Well done, worship team. But not once did I consider to say, God, was that true worship for you? Did you enjoy what you heard today? Church, in every area of our lives, let's give it to God. We cannot outgive God in our lives. And at the same time, if some of the things I've said today or in previous weeks where we've been talking Sermon on the Mount, if there's anything that you've gone, okay, I fall short. Don't walk out of here guilty. Lay it at the altar, lay it at the cross, and new start. I'm doing this better now. If you're one of those people that put because I won't know, by the way, if you put your name on the sign-up sheet and you don't go, just so you know. This isn't aimed at anyone. Plus, we just had some sign-up sheets done, so this could be pretty raw as well. But if you are one of those people that puts your name on the sign-up sheet and you know you're not going, just stop. Just stop doing it. And that's like today, if you're someone that has been doing something, some kind of sin that you know is wrong and you're caught in a cycle, a little bit harder to do, but just stop. Just new day. Let's go again. But when Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no, no, integrity, church, when you lose that, it's so hard to get it back. It's so hard to get it back. Integrity. If you're kind of, and seems to have an honest conversation, although it's just one way, it's the best way. It's the best way. But, if you're one of those people that you're kind of sporadic with God, just with your lifestyle, not just church attendance, but with your lifestyle with God, just sporadic. Some days, I love him. And then weeks can go by and there's no mention of God in your house. There's no talk of God. He's there, but he's not there. Now's the time to say, look, I'm drawing a line in the sand and I want to get serious with God. Like, that's how we're going to mature. That's how this church is going to stand up, rise up, stick out its chest and be ready for what's going to come at it. And ready for what it's been called to do out in there. And sorry, I spat. Can't help it. But don't worry, it didn't land. But church, what I'm trying to say, it's over to you. No one can mature you. Only you can do it. What you put in is what you're going to get out. It's down to you and you alone. And sometimes we just need to have an honest one-way conversation. But we just need that moment when we say, okay, maybe it's time to set the reset. Maybe it's time to say, I'm going to get serious now. And there's a good chance some of you will hear this and go, I'm getting serious now. And 2 weeks' time, you've forgotten my words. Don't forget them. Don't forget the words, not because I've said them, just that I know it's what we need as individuals. It's what we need as a church. My biggest concern, and I was saying this to somebody recently, my biggest concern is that some of the people that are with us and started with us, they will eventually filter out and God will send new people in. My heart is that we all go together. Think about the Israelites. The Israelites, they went at the slowest pace in one sense. There was a whole lot of them, but they managed to get the older ones over into the wilderness as well. They managed all to walk. My heart is that we all walk towards the promised land. Not that a section of us run off and that the others just make up the church every so often they come, or that we all walk together. I don't want God, because I know, just like Queen Esther, Mordecai said to Queen Esther, look, you've been sent for such a time as this, but if you don't do it, God will send somebody else. The truth is, if we as individuals don't step up and do what we need to do, God will send other people to do it. And I don't want any of this church just fading off into the distance. I want us all to go together and let God add to us, not replace us, if that makes sense. Foundation of that, maturity. Maturity, because then when the storms come, you'll stand. You'll make God a priority. And that's what it comes down to, about making God your priority. We all have priorities in our life, and the truth is God isn't the priority in our lives a lot of the time. And until you make God the priority, he'll always come second best, and then he'll always keep dropping down the list. And then that's when it has a knock-on effect with your life and everything else. Put God first. It gives you a greater capacity to love, a greater capacity to do the things. You can never outgive God. If you put him first, I promise he'll put you first. We want God to visit our home every single day, and yet we can't always turn up to his house just once a week. It's that kind of, we want from God, but we only give a little bit, or we only give. I think I'm just trying to encourage people, just give it all. Be like Peter, just walk on water, put both feet in the water and go for it. What's the worst that can happen? Forget that. What's the best that can happen? Maturity, it's not because we're an immature church, all right? It's not. We're not an immature church. It's just we're the heartbeat, I believe, of this movement. And so this is the place that's going to take the greatest attack. And so that's why I'm focusing so much in these coming months on maturity. Never hear it wrong.